Yeah, the other day a question came up and kind of stopped me. So thought I'd talk about it here a little bit today. And the question was, so why do you keep doing this? And it wasn't shouted at me during some kind of debate, or it wasn't an angry comment in the comment section. It was really just asked with a really simple curiosity by someone who follows the channel. But it is the kind of question that can kind of stop you mid-sentence, especially if you're having a bad day. Because if I'm being brutally honest, and I think I should be, the the math for this channel just doesn't add up. And it certainly doesn't scream success. It hasn't led to a massive secondary income. In fact, it really hasn't led to any income at all. The the view counts, they're certainly not breaking any kind of records. In fact, there's days when the analytics look a lot less like a growth chart and more like a flatline DKG. So when someone asks, why do you keep writing? Why do you keep making these videos? They aren't really just asking about my content strategy. What they're asking about is my purpose. And to answer that, I think we have to look at why we do anything in a world that seems increasingly designed to distract us from the whole point of it all. So my journey into content creation, and honestly, that's a term I use very loosely because I certainly don't feel like any kind of influencer. But the journey didn't start with an ambition for subscribers. It started in a much more practical way and a much more boring problem. I had to manage hybrid classes. I teach a few classes at a local college. If you've ever been on the other side of that digital lecture, you know what the struggle is. There's this gap between being physically present and being digitally engaged. I started creating videos as a utility, basically, a way to supplement my teaching, to make sure that the information was accessible and that it was clear. It was completely about clarity. It was about making sure that the content was available in a digital format. But along the way, something unique happened. As I started experimenting with how to present ideas more effectively, I found myself drifting away from the syllabus. I started to create content that wasn't directly related to my curriculum. Some pieces that explored the why behind the facts. I realized that the tools I was using to teach were actually a lot better suited to exploring, well, just about anything. I moved from content about specific subjects to content exploring ideas. And that's when I noticed something really troubling about how we consume ideas today. As I moved into this broader space, I noticed a pattern, sort of a glitch in the way we engage with the world. We've entered the era of the supporter. Have you ever noticed? It feels like almost every modern conversation has been replaced by some form of tribal loyalty. We don't simply have political positions anymore. We're supporters. Supporters of politicians, movements, parties, celebrities, influencers, brands. We become devoted to a persona rather than being advocates for a principle. Sometimes it's not a person. It's a group, left-leaning, right-leaning, Democrats, Republicans, progressive, conservative. These groups have been labeled, and those labels, for better or for worse, whether they're inaccurate or accurate, have become their personalities. We've transitioned from being followers of ideas to being supporters of these personalities, with very little attention paid to the underlying substance of the points they're trying to make. And the danger there, the real underlying rot, is that when you attach your identity to a person or a group rather than a concept, the ideas themselves start to disappear. The nuance gets sacrificed on the altar of loyalty. Sometimes, if you peel back the layers of the persona, you realize there isn't actually much of an idea underneath. There's just a brand. There's this loud voice and a curated image. We aren't debating policy or ethics anymore. We're cheering for our team to win the news cycle. We've turned intellect into athletics. And in that game, there's no winner. Only a lot more noise. And the worst part of it is, this lack of substance isn't just happening in a vacuum. It's being amplified by an ecosystem that thrives on it. The modern media landscape, from news networks to social media algorithms, doesn't actually care about truth or progress. It cares about engagement. And what engages us more than anything else? Outrage. We don't see real debate anymore. We see talking points. We see gotcha moments. We see people scoring points against an opponent rather than making progress toward a solution. It's a lot easier to write a 280-word character assassination of a person than it is to engage in the complexities of their argument. The media has turned communication into a series of skirmishes. We're constantly being fed content designed to make us feel angry, but rarely do we get content that makes us feel informed. It's all heat and no light. There's a real cost to living in this constant state of manufactured outrage. It's a deep, deep sense of anxiety, a pervasive feeling of helplessness. When you're constantly exposed to outrage without understanding, you can really begin to feel like you're living in something like a constant state of fight or flight. You feel the anger, but because you don't actually understand the full scope of what's happening, you feel powerless to do anything about it. You see something wrong, you feel an intense surge of fury, and then nothing. The cycle just repeats again tomorrow. It's a real recipe for burnout and cynicism. And maybe the most disempowering result of all this is where our focus ends up shifting. We become hyper-fixated on what others should change. We spend hours dissecting the flaws of politicians, celebrities, or people on the other side. Well, we completely neglect the one area where we actually have any agency. We're looking outward, trying to fix a world that feels broken. Well, our own inner world is being neglected. So that brings us back to this question. Why do I keep doing this? I keep doing it because I want to find a quiet frontier. It's a space where we can step away from the shouting matches and return to something a lot more foundational. For me, creating this channel is really an exercise in reclaiming my own attention. It's about trying to build a space for three things that I care really deeply about, and that are actually represented in the logo that you see here on the screen: reflection, rationality, and resilience. These aren't just words for a brand identity. They're reminders to myself. Reflection, it's the antidote to the noise. The ability to pause and ask yourself, is this my thought? Or was it planted there by an algorithm or a talking head in the media? And rationality is the antidote to the persona. It's the commitment to looking at the ideas based on their merit, not on the messenger. And resilience, well, that's what allows me to keep making these videos, even when the views are low and the comments are sparse. It's the ability to find meaning in the process rather than in external metrics. Ultimately, I do this because I believe in empowerment. And true empowerment doesn't come from winning an argument on the internet. It comes from identifying what you can actually control. I can't change the political landscape of the world overnight. I can't stop the media from chasing outrage. But I can control how I process information. I can control how much weight I give to a headline. I can control my commitment to thinking critically. There's a sentiment expressed by Mahatma Gandhi that I really like to use as my North Star. It goes, if we could change ourselves, the tendencies in the world would also change. The world is a reflection of our collective internal state. If we can cultivate more clarity, more rationality, and more resilience within ourselves, then maybe, bit by bit, the noise outside will begin to settle. So, that's my answer to the question, why do you do it? And maybe that's a question worth asking yourself, too. If your answer involves reducing the noise and increasing the clarity, I hope you'll consider subscribing. Thanks very much for watching. Take good care.
There's not much difference day to day. No time to stop and pray to my God. Won't you grant me some relief? Obligations and ordeals, my heart it barely feels. My soul go dry like a wind-blown autumn leaf. So many faces fill my mind, most of them are so unkind.